Hello, everybody, and welcome to Boss Talks. This is episode 49. We have a great guest today, Christi Wedel. She is out of Dallas, Texas, I believe. She might be in a suburb. I don't know, but she at least lives in that vicinity. She's with AG Living, and professionally, she's in the world of multifamily training. She's been in that world for ever, as far as I know. Developing people, giving them the training they need to do their job well. And I know a lot of you know her really well. I actually don't know her that well, which is why this is so fun, because I get to know her live on the air in front of you all. So it's going to be a great show. I'm really excited to jump into some topics today around neurodiversity and just people that think differently, which I'm actually really interested in talking about this because I always wonder about myself, to be honest. And anyways, never gone to the doctor or had any tests, but the way I think, I always, when I'm around certain people, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm different. But anyways, we'll get into that. And also just a topic of when we're training, when we're gathering, we got into this habit of doing everything virtually. But I think as people, we've really jumped into making that the go-to, even though maybe that's not what we want. Being in person is definitely something us people need for just social interaction, and we just learn better, I think. So anyways, we'll jump into all that. But before we do that, I'm your host, Evan Happel with Community Boss. And as many of you know, we have a solution that is in the prop tech sector of the multifamily industry to help navigate things like parking, amenities, mapping. We even help you generate some revenue. So if you have any questions and you're jumping into budget season and you're looking at all your tech stack and you need something new, we'd love to at least demo it, let you see what we have to offer. But today, that's all I'm going to talk about for that. It's time to bring Christi to the show. Christi, thanks for being here.
Hi, Evan. Thanks for having me. This is such an
Absolutely.
awesome experience.
Yes. Going live, there's so many things that can go right and wrong, but we roll with it. So just so you know, there might be glitches along the way. Hopefully not. This should be a seamless day, I hope. I'm crossing my fingers. We already have somebody that's watching, Bobby V. He's a previous guest back in, I think it was December that he was on, and just
Hey, Bobby.
wonderful to have him. And he's actually a really great guy. You should follow him. He's one that brings some joy and levity to the multifamily space.
I'm definitely going to look at the list and probably follow most of the people who attend.
Absolutely. Awesome. Absolutely. Allie, thanks for joining
having me.
Absolutely.
So I'm super excited about this opportunity to talk about these two topics that you led into. So, and I think they intersect on many different levels. So it's going to be fun.
Yes, absolutely. So before we get into that, though, I like to kick it off just to, it's a live show. Not everybody's used to that. They're used to having the podcast effect. Everything's edited, all this and that. Well, we don't have that luxury. So we have a live audience. We have a live show. And I want to just kick it off, ask some questions, and just bring the levity to the conversation as well. So
sounds great.
My first question is, if you were to build community, what would be your approach? How would you go about that?
If I were to build my own community, multifamily community?
like more in the sense of a relationship, like building community in the industry, in your personal life, bringing people together. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a great question. And I kind of already do that in my personal life. And so I think that, it's important. Actually, it's right on topic with what we're talking about, because it's important that we learn how others communicate and how others don't communicate. It's important to understand people's body language and those things that are not being said. So I think there's a lot of I don't really like the term soft skills necessarily. I think they should just be called essential skills. But there's a lot of soft skills that go into creating community. So, and again, I think it's important to take it back to the basics, like treating people the way that they want to be treated, right? So we used to call it the golden rule: treat people how they treat you. But I say we take it a step further than that, and we treat people the way they want to be treated. And we'll get into that topic a little bit more later. But I think it's important that we see people and we take the time to listen. One of the first things we teach in Leasing 101, so to speak, is to listen with the intention of gaining knowledge of our prospect versus listening just to say the next thing or check off that next box on the guest card or what have you. And so I think the same stands true in a personal environment as well. It's really listening to people and giving people the benefit of the doubt. I think in our culture today, I see this a lot on social media platforms. We sort of expect the worst of people, and with their comments and things like that, we think their intentions are not the best versus, well, maybe they meant it this way or that way. And I think the same stands true in personal conversations as well. So that was a really long way to answer that question, but welcome to the Christi Wedel. Long-winded answers are just the only way I know how to communicate. Oh, can everybody else hear? I think I lost some audio. Maybe we have a slight issue I'll check on my end. Let's do this. Technology, gotta love it, right? Can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay. See, this is where sign language would really come in handy. Okay, I'm gonna disconnect the AirPods and let's see if that works. Even though they're fully charged, we're gonna do that. Better? Oh, nope, that didn't help at all either. Goodness.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Don't tell me you were on mute. Were you on
mute? I was.
I love it. Okay, that's fantastic.
See, live show. A
little bit more spicy.
Yeah. So I'm out in the garage. Some people already know that. And a big truck went by and I muted my microphone and I forgot.
You know what? Listen, you know that I'm in training, right? This is my world. I live in it. And so that's just like another day at the office for me. It's, hey, you're muted. Hey, you're muted. Yep, and I do the same thing myself, even though, again, this is what I do for a living. So all good.
Yeah. Well, good. Everybody in the audience, they chimed in and said, "We don't hear you, Evan." I was like, oh, right.
You know what? Let me see. I want to see comments. Okay. Now I can see everyone. Everyone's, I had it on, I guess I had clicked on private chat versus comments.
Oh, yep.
Hi, everybody. Oh, this is fantastic. Yeah, Christi.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You'll see everybody now. There you go.
Love this. Yeah, no, that's just the reality, especially with being live, as you mentioned at the beginning, this isn't something we're editing. And so it's going to be a little bit spicy, which to me is more fun. So let's do it.
Perfect. Yeah. Most people, they don't do the lives. So this is usually a first experience. In a lot of cases, it's a first experience for doing a podcast too. So, this does turn into that as well. And it does get edited and all that, but this first go, anything
You're
goes,
a brave
I guess.
Soul. It says a lot about your confidence, my friend.
Oh gosh. Well, it's built confidence. I don't know that I didn't start with it. So
that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll jump back into it. So next question, thanks for answering the first one, is if you were to have someone over for dinner, hospitality, treating them in a special way, what would you make them for dinner?
Oh gosh. Well, so it's going to sound very just super simple and like a Tuesday night dinner, but I have a special recipe for chicken spaghetti. Now, don't throw tomatoes at the screen or at the laptop.
like chicken parmesan, basically,
I
or
can't look. Here's the thing: if I tell you my secrets, then I just would no. I don't know what to say. But it's look. It's super simple and super easy. But I make it in a way that you don't use the typical sauce, like the red marinara sauce.
okay.
It's okay. Here's the truth of it. You guys know I'm in Dallas, Texas. You know I'm a Southern kind of gal. Those of you who actually have met me in real life, you'll hear it come out occasionally, the y'all and things like that. So it's definitely got a Southern spin on it. It is completely like full of cheeses and sauces and all kinds of fattening things. So
Okay.
don't come to my house if you're expecting to be, on a diet.
Oh, I hope when I go to people's house, they're not trying to like impose their healthy habits on me.
No, we get enough of that. I feel like we do that enough day to day. Like I don't go have chicken spaghetti for a random Tuesday for lunch at work. It's usually salad, chicken, that whole
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, if I'm going to somebody's house, if anything, I've been avoiding the junk all week at my house.
Right.
Feed me the junk.
I want the cake, I want the pasta, I want the bread, I want it all.
That's right. That's right. This is special. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Nothing says I care about you deeply like, I don't even know, Brussels sprouts. I don't know. I mean, you can make Brussels sprouts taste pretty good. I don't want to dog on it too much. Actually, I've come to enjoy Brussels sprouts cooked the right way, but it's all good.
It's all good. Yeah, that's what I would probably do, and some kind of dessert, of course.
Yeah. Allie, I like salad. You can add salad to a meal, and salads can be delicious. Like you can add everything to a salad.
Yeah, sometimes the salads I make aren't exactly like the healthiest salads. It's got all the things. So
you kind of assume, oh yeah, my salad, it's so healthy. Well, what's the dressing? What are the things you added? The cheese, the meat, everything else. So
yeah. Even sometimes the cooked veggies, cooked in oil, but added into the salad, it sounds good, right?
Right. It's all negative calories. Mm-hmm. No, that's true. Well, thanks for sharing. And then finally, third question. We're from the Northwest, so coffee is a part of our DNA as people, but also as a company. We have our own blend of coffee, Boss Blend. Many people that have been on the show or just customers, they receive it. And so far, so good. People really enjoy it. So you'll be getting your own Boss Blend. But when it comes to coffee, what is your favorite, your go-to drink?
Oh, gosh. So it's going to sound super bougie, and I know it is. But I love a good blonde roast from Starbucks. And I like it iced because I live in Texas, as mentioned, and it's like 9,000 degrees every day for like 6 months straight.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm exaggerating slightly, but yeah, so definitely a blonde roast. I also love, and this is really inexpensive, but it's really full of calories, is the iced coffee from McDonald's.
Okay.
Yeah, like guilty as charged right here.
All right, there you go.
Yeah. I love it.
I mean, especially when you're going for drinks that are just tasty with sugar and stuff.
Oh,
I mean, Dunkin', Starbucks, McCafe, whatever. They all taste good. They're all terrible for you, but they're terrible.
I only get this the reality is I probably get this maybe once every few months. Because generally speaking, I try to eat healthy, generally speaking. But yeah, that's definitely not an everyday thing. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
Especially people who are neurodivergent. Nice little segue there.
The caffeine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not helpful.
No.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering. Those are the 3 questions. Show's over. All right. Thanks for everybody that came.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Allie says, I'm slowly high salad.
Yep.
I love this.
Yeah. So
good company is made better with good food.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for getting through those. Now we're going to transition. We'll get to the topics at hand as we've brought a little, again, on this Friday. And I know you were just coming out of a little bit of a funk as to why we rescheduled. You weren't feeling great. So I'm glad you're feeling better. I hope you're feeling
Thank
better.
you. Yes, much better. Yes, it's a miracle what they can do with, a shot and a couple of antibiotics in your system. Like, whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
good stuff.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're feeling well. All right, so we're going to get right into it. You've been in the industry, let's see here, since you were 19 years old.
Like 1,000 years. Let's just call it 1,000.
Okay, 1,000 years.
That's what I say when I'm training. I just get that out of the way. It's been like 900 years or 1,000 years. No, I did start when I was 19, part-time as a leasing consultant.
Yeah. So you got into it as a leasing consultant. Were you like in the midst of going to college, or what was kind of your way about that?
Yes, and this will totally. I'm not a private person when it comes to age. I'm like, hey, I'm 48 years old, and so I'm like, I'm proud that I'm 48. These wrinkles are all earned. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I started at 19 years old, part time in college. And the reason I mentioned the age thing is because I saw an ad in the newspaper. So there you go, an ad in the newspaper for a leasing consultant. I had no idea what that even meant, but I just saw like $200 per lease. I didn't even know what a lease was, right? Like I'm like, whatever it is, sign me up. Like $200. Okay, cool. And a free apartment. This is back in the day when free apartments were a thing. And I was like, yeah, I was like the richest college kid on campus, like free rent in this brand new luxury apartment community. And and then $200 per lease. And so I was very fortunate, though, along the way to learn and grow under some amazing leaders that really set me up for the success. Anything I have today is based on the foundation that was set by the women and men who went before me in this industry. So I don't take credit for it. I just show up and learn and continue to learn even today.
Yeah, well, it's great. Well, it's good to give credit to people. And, unlike you, I am self-made. Just kidding.
I like that. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, I that's all I do is learn from other people. That's why I love this show, is because I have the great privilege of learning from people like yourself. And it is so fun every week to have like a crash course in someone else's life. So I really do appreciate you being here. And sharing all that you have learned from your own experiences, from other people. It's very much something that I appreciate about this. So
one of the things that I've learned over the past few years is the more I know, the less I know, if that makes sense. So I feel like if you get to a place where you're like, I have been doing this for 25 years and I know I've seen it all and all of, I feel like that's just a really dangerous place to be, especially right now in multifamily with AI and all of these things that are literally happening, changing daily. Really, the reality is this stuff is changing daily. You're in prop tech, you know much more so than I do just how quickly the tech is changing. And so I feel like it's really important to stay observant and to keep learning and growing. And I can learn so much more from where is Stephanie? I thought I saw Stephanie on here. I'm learning from Stephanie Anderson and people who post on LinkedIn. I'm learning from people who are much younger than me, so many things that they're teaching me. And so, I feel like the older I get, the more knowledge I get, the less I know. And the more I want to learn, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there actually is a question. Libby from up here in the Northwest, past guest, and part of the 20 in their 20s with NAA this year at Apartmentalize. She has a question about what is some of the best advice you have received from these people?
That is a fantastic question. I don't know if it would be labeled advice, but some of the best direction that I've been given is to always keep learning. And I know I mentioned that a few minutes ago, but it's that mindset of gosh, what we're going to be talking about today, neurodiversity. Yes, I know quite a bit about it, but I'm still, there's so much more to learn. And the same is true with our industry. And the same is true with every sector of our industry. Once you think you've got the leasing figured out, then oh gosh, the assistant manager role is changing a little bit. And what does that look like for our on-site team members? And so I can't really reiterate that enough. It's keeping that learning mindset on, just turned on all the time. And don't be afraid to learn from people in other roles. I learn from porters. I learn from executive VPs. I learn from everyone. I learned from the lady that I just got my coffee from at McDonald's. You know, if she's treating people well, I keep that in my mind, you know? And so it's just that always keep learning. And then also to another piece of advice, I guess, would be always give credit and see the best in other people. So I don't know about you guys, but I when I started at 19, I'll tell you where this comes from. There was a lady who was my boss at the time, and this is back in the day, where she had sticky notes, and she would write on the sticky note, "Hey, you did a great job yesterday," and like stick it on the laptop. I don't think it was laptops back then. It wasn't. It was computer, like probably this big, you know, like
right.
Anyhow, but just something that simple. And here we are 25 years later, and I still remember how that made me feel as a leasing consultant. And so that's another piece of it, is just give some kind of credit every single day with my team members, my direct reports. I give them little pieces of golden nuggets as often as possible. Now, the other piece of that is it has to be authentic, right? It needs to have some kind of a substance behind it. If you just say, "Hey, Evan, you're doing a great job."
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. At what?
At podcasts, at getting people on the show, or what sales, what is it? And so I think it's important that it's tangible for people as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. So you're in the training realm. Obviously you deal with lots of different people, and you know, you've taken from your own experience to help you each year get better at training, to accommodate people with what they already know, don't know, and also how they learn. And so the thing that you brought to the table today to talk about is the topic of neurodiversity and people whom are neurodivergent. Actually, these terms are somewhat new to me. Not freshly new, but in the last few months, I heard these being used. And so I'm sure there's a lot of people that maybe don't understand what that means. And so if you could explain it, that would be a great way to start.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I'd like to preface it by saying I didn't go looking for the strangest word and decide to do a topic on it. Like this topic was born from helping and assisting and advocating for my son, who is autistic and has ADHD as well, and struggles with some mental health. And so it was born out of a place of, how can I advocate? How can I help? And then it started to really bleed over into, oh my gosh, this is why when some people are in my training class, they behave this way, or they don't behave this way, or they do not seem to be listening at all, when in reality I can quiz them later and they know more than someone who was looking at me eye contact the entire time. So what being neurodivergent, say that 4 times in a row, it just means that your brain thinks differently, and it looks like and is labeled as autism, anywhere on the spectrum of autism, being autistic, having ADHD, being ADHD. All of these are they're just terms. And basically what it means is that you think differently than a neurotypical. And so in this space, you'll hear those 2 words. Neurotypical is someone whose brain thinks like most people, I guess, if you want to put it that way. there's no difference in their brain. The way they process information, it is what it is, right? With someone who's neurodivergent, they take things in sensorily, made that word up just now, in a sensory environment. They absorb information differently, they think differently. And to complicate it a little bit even more, is there's a spectrum of neurodiversity as well. And so to bring it all into what it has to do with our industry is we are in a time where it's very difficult to hold on to employees. If I'm being real honest, they're, would leave our company for an extra, $20 or an extra, 10,000 a year or something like that. And so part of what I'm seeing in that training / HR / recruiting space is that people leave when they're not feeling appreciated. Now, that's not news to most people on this live. It's all over LinkedIn, right? People stay when they're paid well, when they're appreciated. And I would add to that and say, when we speak to them the way they want to be spoken to, and or treat them the way they want to be treated. Let me give you a tangible example of what this looks like, because it's a lot of stuff. If you've never heard of this, you're like, what in the tarnation? That's what we say in the South.
Tarnation.
What is she talking about, right? So I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say that, at the corporate office at your company, we do a big celebration for your birthday, right? We bring in the balloons. We do, I don't know, we have the clown. That's a bit much. But we have the music and the streamers, and it's this big ordeal, right? If that person is neurodivergent, that is going to be their worst nightmare come true. They do not like to be center of attention. That is going to be sensory overload, and probably they won't be able to think clearly for the next few hours. It's just not conducive to the way that they like to be treated. And I've seen this again with my son in any social situation where he's deemed to be the center of attention. He wants to go hide under a table, even at 11 years old. By the way, it's my son's birthday today, y'all.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And so that's just one way in which we can be more mindful and thoughtful of those around us. So what that looks like, that's such an easy fix. When someone gets hired on, ask them questions like that. Say, hey, what's your favorite coffee? Oh, by the way, do you like big birthday celebrations, or do you want us all to, maybe sign a card and stick a gift card in there and just slide it on your desk for your birthday? Mm-hmm. What kind of, again, I'm making this up on the fly. We can make it sound more professional, but how do you like to be acknowledged?
Right.
It's similar to people who have, we've all heard the, the love languages, right? Like you like gifts, or you like quality time. It's the same thing in this environment, but it's a professional environment. So how do you like to be treated? Do you want us to take you to lunch and sing happy birthday and have all the things? Because for me, I want all the things. I want the pink glitter. I want the pink. Okay. I want it all. I want to make a big deal. And my son would, I'll give you an example. Today's his birthday. You know what I did? I put 3 balloons on a little chair and some special little donuts on a plate. And when he woke up, he saw those and his face just lit up. Now, had I had music going and streamers and it would not have been fun for his birthday. And he probably would still be reeling about it right now. So, that's just a very simple example. But when we're talking about the bigger picture of training, learning and development in my space, I have to be mindful of how people learn. I provide kinesthetic learners, fidget spinners. See if I have one handy here.
Mm-hmm.
Of course I do. Of course I have one handy. Everyone gets these little guys, and pen and paper for them to write down their thoughts on. People can be doodling in my sessions now, and I'm not thinking, oh, wow, neuro spicy. Yes, I love it. I love this. An about you questionnaire at onboarding. That is fantastic. I love that. What
Yeah.
keeps me motivated, Marty said. Oh gosh, probably my family, for sure. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, so we can do better. I'm trying to do better in my little space, in my little world. Professionally, I think, I've still got a long ways to go, right? It's a learning process, but I think we need to just try. We're doing great. I feel like we're making big strides in the area of diversity and inclusion. I think we've made huge strides in the past 2 or 3 years in that space. And so
Yeah.
I say, let's expand that.
Mm.
It's not taking the place of by any means, but let's expand that to how do our employees think? How can we get to them? How can we show them support and love on them without them going,
Right. Right. Yeah.
hiding
No,
under the desk.
no, that's really good. So when you shared the picture today, just the word image, a lot of those a lot of those things that were in that image resonate with me. Like a lot of people, they meet me, I'm friendly, I'm outgoing, all those things. But at the same time, my brain is still processing things, I think, differently. Because what I've found over the years, that I'll start talking about stuff and I see the person in front of me doing, like, their eyes are glazed over and they're like, no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, you
Like,
lost me like 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
but I'm spouting off on these things that I have, like, thought deeply about internally and processed,
Yeah.
like, probably like really thought out. And then the person in front of me is like, that's cool.
Yeah.
I have no idea where you're going with this.
Right.
Like,
Yes. That it's so true. And I think, what you just mentioned is one of the second points that I really wanted to make on this topic. And that is, and this is more of a serious kind of angle here, if you will, is that when we don't take these things into consideration, unfortunately, people get fired from jobs very, very often, and not just in our space, in every space, really, professionally speaking, because they think differently. And what that might look like is, if you, let's say, Evan, you're my supervisor, and you're like, hey, Christy, let's have a meeting. And I'm like, okay, cool, let's have a meeting. And you want to get a point across to me, a project that you want me to work on. And it's got, let's say, 2 or 3 topics, 2 or 3 to-dos, right? This is very common in any professional setting, right? You're my boss. You're like, hey, we've got this thing coming up and I need you to do X, Y, and Z, right? Because I have ADHD, and I have a official pedigree papers. I am ADHD 100%. I'm going to go into that meeting, and this has happened so many times in my professional life. And I'm going to hear what I think you're saying in that meeting. I'm going to hear the project, and I'm maybe going to hear step 2, because step 1 wasn't interesting to me, and I'm not very good at it. So I'm going to hear you say step 2 because it's create slides, and I love to create slides. I'm like, boom. So then that third step, I miss that third step because you're still talking about, you've moved on to step 3, and I'm still thinking about how fantastic that presentation is going to be. Like, I am all over it. I've painted in my mind what the slides will look like and all of it. So here's what happens. We leave that meeting, and if you don't know that about me, because I'm ashamed, 90% of us are ashamed to tell our supervisors this for fear of retaliation or not getting promoted. Let's be honest. So what happens is then I look like less than of an employee of yours because I start working on the project and you needed an outline first. You didn't need me to jump into the slides, but I heard slides and I'm like, oh, yes, slides. Yes. Right. And I'm laughing about this and making it funny, but this is the reality, is that eventually you're going to get tired of having to repeat what you're thinking is repeating yourself. When in all actuality, if we knew each other and you knew this about me, what would help immensely with someone who's autistic or has ADHD, neurospicy in any way, is to follow that up with an email. And I don't mean follow it up with an email only when that person's in trouble or we're doing it because, hey, you really screwed up, and follow it up with, hey, per our conversation, that type of email. I mean, just a, hey, here's a recap real quickly, boom, boom, boom. Because what happens to me is I can go back and look at that. I don't ever want to not do my job or not do what it is that's expected of me in any capacity. But I know I can be very honest and say I have been written up. I have been let go from jobs because of this very thing. And I didn't know. I thought there's something very wrong with me. Oh my gosh, why can't I keep it together? Oh my gosh. It wasn't until I was late ADHD diagnosed and got on medication. Again, I live my life very open with all of this. It's all over my social media. It wasn't until then that I could say there's nothing wrong with me. My brain just thinks differently. And now the onus is on me. Now that I know this about myself, I need to go then to my supervisor and say, hey, just FYI, can we do a quick recap of our meeting just so I know exactly what's most important to you and I can put those things in order? Because again, I will jump into the thing and ADHD people are famous for hyper focusing. I will hyper focus on those slides and stay up till 2 a.m. until they're perfect. And you're like, that's not what I was looking for at all. Like, if we would have done the outline first, Christi, we could have gone over that, and then you wouldn't have been working on slides that are irrelevant. And I don't know if I'm the only one who does that or has experienced that in their lives, but it is devastating personally. And so let's do better. Let's do. We don't know to do better until we know. We don't know what we don't know. But now that we do know, let's make sure that those around us, that we're making sure we communicate with them the way that they need to be communicated with.
Right. No, that's good. I think that there's a lot there. And I think we because when somebody isn't the same as us, we don't think about that. Right. We just, especially if the way they are processing or being isn't like the majority of your coworkers or the people you're interviewing or whatever it is, we view it as odd, right? Versus they just think different.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that we'll be having this conversation in 5 years and people will be like, oh, it's going to be sort of more common knowledge at that point. And, or at least I hope it will be. I think that, I'm not going to stop until our industry is, at least I can, in my little world, in my little space, I'm going to make sure that, I'm being cognizant of those around me and making sure that, I communicate again the way they need to be communicated with.
Yeah. So when it comes to you're in training, you obviously do group sessions and maybe some one-on-ones, but I'm sure you usually have a group. How do you accommodate the different learning styles and ways people think in that setting?
So that's a great question. And the first thing that I do in every training session now, again, this is all brand new, like literally in the past 6 to 8 months, my first slide, and it could be a bit controversial and some people may not like it, but that's okay, is if it's a group setting. If I'm in a group instructor-led training session, I go way early or the day prior and I set out all the things. So I have a notepad, pen, water bottle, if I can do that, depending on the budget. And then again, like, did I say fidget spinner? See, ADHD. I trailed off. I don't know. We'll say it again. And basically what I say at the beginning, and I have a slide of my son in the very top left corner. And people are like, well, that's very vain or weird. Why do you have it's the title slide of the presentation, but it also has a little picture of him. And my segue to begin the session is always, hey, my name is, the whole introduction thing. And I just want you guys to know that, no, I'm neuro spicy. And if you're like, what in the world is that? I'm like, no, we're not having chips and salsa for breakfast. What that really means is, and it kind of gets them going, and they're like, oh, wow, okay, so she's relatable. I think I'm funny sometimes. My son thinks I'm egregiously not funny ever, he says. And then also it gets them talking about, I talk about the fidget spinners. I say, hey, listen, I am a kinesthetic learner. And so you may see me, and I carry this around with me, and I have a lapel. I don't carry a microphone around me. Sometimes a lot of times my audiences at my smaller company, you don't need a microphone. Have you met me? Like, you don't need one. But I'll walk around with this so everyone feels comfortable. Now, I don't use it in a distracting way. When someone's talking, I'll usually put it down by my side or behind me to be cognizant of that it might be distracting. But we talk very openly and freely. I'm like, if you need to go use the restroom, if you need to go stand at the back of the classroom, wherever we are, you don't have to raise your hand. Get up and go and stand at the back of the classroom. Like, no problems at all. If you need to go to the restroom, you don't have to raise your hand. You're not in first grade. Like, I'm cool with it. And so I just open my sessions up at the very beginning with, I'm here. This is going to be a very real session. We're going to have some tangible stuff that you're going to take away, but we're also going to have some fun. And especially if it is like an all day session, I make sure that I build in breaks, that we do brain breaks, much like you would for, my son's 5th grade class last year, Kahoot, all of those types of things. And again, I don't want to nerd out on you with this, but it's about knowing your audience. If I'm teaching leadership to the regional directors, probably not going to put Kahoot in there, because I don't even need to tell you why. That would be kind of silly. But again, it's knowing the audience, and also letting the audience know, I've been in your shoes. I've been in your shoes, and I've had to sit in an 8-hour session. And I always tell them, I'm not vain enough to think that you're going to take more than 25% of this away. So do what you need to do to make sure I get that 25%. And so they're like, oh, okay. But yeah, I'm very laid back with my approach to training. And we just start off with that. And I have the picture of my son, and I say, hey, fidget spinners are a little pricey these days. So, my son is neuro spicy. And so if you make sure you just leave those on the way out, I would greatly appreciate it. And so again, it just makes them see that I'm just a real person, and that I'm on their side. They can doodle if they want to. I give them fresh pens at break. So I just really try to cater to all different types of personalities and learning styles.
Nice. And then, just like you were saying, you would get fixated on a point that you really enjoyed. I'm sure that happens when you're teaching with certain people. They're like, you're saying something, and they're like, yes, I love that. And then everything else is like, I have no idea. So how do you help with that part? Do you give them something to take away with them, or come back to it, or what is it? Because I'm assuming you have like tests or quizzes or things like that to kind of see if they actually retained anything.
Yeah. So when I call it light bulb moments, I didn't coin that phrase, obviously, but when I see a light bulb go on, I can tell that person, something's really connected in their brain. So if I see that, I'll say, okay, does anyone have anything to share on that? I don't want to call them out on it, because maybe, again, they don't like to be center of attention, but I'll say, does anyone want to share on that? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? And then I try to build in little micro quizzes every 5 to 10 slides if it's an all day session. If it's half a day, maybe we do 2 of those where I quiz the group, and maybe there's a Starbucks gift card that they win, that type of thing. But I feel like that's so much more effective, learning as we go and quizzing as we go, versus I do quiz people afterward as well, but I want to make sure you're getting it live, like right now. And if not, let's go back and talk about it again. So
right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to learn there. I mean, public school teachers are constantly dealing with this topic, right? And or teachers of young people, not public school specifically. And so I can only imagine what that's like for young kids, like figuring out how to navigate all the different learners. I mean, it is a challenge for the person teaching, obviously.
Oh, yes. 100%. I'm not a teacher, and I bless them is all I can say, because I don't know how they do what they do. Look, I love children. Obviously, my child is my children are my world, but like teaching them day in and day out that would not be my thing. I love adult learners. They're fascinating to me.
Yeah. As long as they're all acting like adults.
Well, that's a whole different topic. You know what I found in my trainings world is that, and I learned this, I didn't coin this, but I go, if someone's not behaving, or they're talking a lot, or they're on their phone, which is sometimes the bane of my existence. All the trainers are shaking their head like, I'll just go stand either right beside them or kind of behind them and just keep talking, not saying anything to them at all, but just continue I watched someone do that probably 8 or 9 years ago, and it works because that person's like, oh, she's right here. This is awkward. I better stop talking. Right. So yeah, just a little tidbit there. See?
Yeah.
Rabbit trail. That's how my brain operates.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. And honestly, there's times. So when I've talked to certain people and they say something that is interesting, I've caught myself forgetting everything they said from then on, and then fixating on that thing. And then they're done saying something, and then I go back and I edit it later, not really realizing it at the time. Mm-hmm. And then my comment afterwards doesn't really make sense.
Well, you're doing great today. I mean, everything that you are commenting and saying makes perfect sense to me. But also remember this, Evan, we are our own worst critics. I will do a voiceover or a video for, I do these Wisdom Wednesday videos. And still to this day, I'm like, why did my voice inflect at that certain moment? Or why did I act like that was a question when clearly it's not? So you're doing great. The show is doing great. If you ever need a pep talk, just look me up, because that's what I'm here for.
Perfect. Yes.
I'm going to look at some of these.
I need some pep talks. Yeah. So we have some great comments, actually. It started back with Kara Rice. She was just talking around the topic of celebrations, making social posts, and just, in real world, some people just don't want that kind of attention. And so back to your point in the beginning is like, maybe we just in general need to do a better job of asking questions of new hires as to how they like to be celebrated, publicly, privately, with words of affirmation, a written note, a candy bar, Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And Kara, I love that comment. We find that similar to your remarks on how team members want to be celebrated. It's such a great comment here. I love that, Kara. I still have not met Kara in person. We have been meaning to meet for probably like 3 years prior to COVID. I feel like even.
Well, I ran into her in the line at Apartmentalize getting the shuttle. So that's where I met her this year.
I'm super jealous. Yeah, I had bad FOMO. Like, I had to get off LinkedIn because you guys were making me so jealous. Not in a bad way, but I was like, oh, I wish I was, because I wasn't there this year. So
yeah.
But no, you make a great point. We think that everyone wants to have their birthday shouted out. Sure, it works. Yeah. But maybe they don't at all, especially, not trying to sound funny, but like some older folk, people like me, where I'm like almost 50. I'm like, don't celebrate my birthday. I'm fine. And so, yeah, I think it's just, a lot of this is just being very cognizant of, again, how other people want to be treated. And these are just not things that we thought about. It doesn't mean we were doing them wrong by any means. It just means that we don't know until we know. And then when we know, we can do better. Right. And so I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just human nature. Like, everything people do is we do what's easiest, takes the least amount of effort, and hurts the least for us, right?
Right.
So if it means taking effort for someone else, like for me to learn something about you or whatever it is, and it's different than how I am, we have a tendency, because I know I have a tendency
Yes.
to conserve energy, to whatever, to
Right.
go the easy route, right? And that is to make assumptions, to treat them how we want to be treated. So just like you were saying early on, treating people like how you want to be treated isn't necessarily how they want to be treated.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? I learned that from Jessica Eberbach. She was my supervisor at TriCap, and I said something about the golden rule, and she didn't really correct me, but she was like, "Well, how about this?" And I was like, "Oh wow, I never thought about it like that." Okay, I like that. I mean, and it makes sense, right? So, yeah, always learning, my friend.
Yeah.
Christy has been
Because
on my list. I can't read that one.
oh, to meet. I'm
Oh,
not sure who it is.
oh,
LinkedIn user, you need to say who you are, because for some reason you're not showing up.
Yeah, less assumptions and more facts. We don't know what we don't know. Yeah, 100%. Kara, these are some great. Yeah, Faith, I love this comment. Some people don't want to be on camera unless they feel they're at 100%. We've learned that giving notice ahead of time, we're taking badge pictures next Wednesday, and sending a reminder and working with them to make sure they feel comfortable. So, you know what? That's a really great comment. And you know what else is that, I used to be, especially during COVID, I was like, cameras on, everyone, cameras on. And there's a great reason for that, because I'd rather you not be in your PJs and playing with your dog the entire webinar, but also, again, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I have to know that I have to trust that the people who are on my team and the people who are out in the field that I'm training are in fact using the time that's set aside for that webinar for learning, right? And they're not going to be on Facebook. Only old people are on Facebook, my son says. Whatever, right?
Instagram.
Like TikTok and Instagram. Yeah. Whatever the cool kids are doing these days. I have to trust, right? I have to trust, and then trust but verify. We say it all the time in this industry, right? Trust that they're attending, trust that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're taking notes, and then give them a quiz afterward. It's just really that simple. But asking someone to be on camera, especially during COVID, because it was hours long on camera, is just as bad as asking someone to sit still for 8 hours in a training session with like one little lunch break. It's devastatingly difficult for people who are neurospicy.
Neurospicy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing on this topic. Was there anything else that you feel for our industry specifically, ways that we could improve, whether it's training, onboarding, things that we haven't already touched on, obviously, that could be just a big help?
Yeah, I think, well, I'll just speak from personal experience. The first thing I did was started doing some research on it. Started following some people. There's some people that I follow on LinkedIn that by the way, this topic is about 10 years ahead of its time in the UK. So some of the people that I follow who are, speaking on live stages to thousands of people on this topic in the UK, they have such a deep knowledge on this topic. I mean, and so much of it is relevant to our industry. And so, I don't want you to have to go searching for people. If you want to reach out to me, I can certainly put you in touch with some of those folks, and you can follow them and just do some research and find out, I would start with your own little team. If you're a team of 5, reach out to your team members and say, hey, how do you like to be celebrated? A lot of times we'll celebrate people, again, the way we want to be celebrated, but we can't read each other's minds. And so what means more to you, to have a free lunch or a day off, or to leave early or come in late? All of those things, we just need to be more cognizant of that. And I cannot stress enough how all of this intertwines with mental health. We're getting there with neurodiversity. With diversity and inclusion. We're definitely scratching the surface in our industry right now on these other topics. Mental health is one that I saw a lot of topics on at Apartmentalize. So sad I wasn't there, which is fantastic. And last year there was some of that. This year was even more. I want to see us continue to expand on that and just and really just care about our people. I know we care, but how do we show people that we care? That's what's going to keep our team members engaged and happy and with us long term.
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe one more question around this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can talk all day. You just let me know.
Yeah. So when it comes to hiring, how is it that we can change the hiring process to accommodate people that are different?
I think that's a great question. And I think one of the things, and I hope that this is a little bit controversial, I guess, but I would say we probably should get away from just the personality tests. I get it. I get them. In fact, I'm certified in one of those for True Colors as well. I totally understand that and I get it. But the thing is that the neurodiversity piece of it has not been updated on those onboarding sort of personality quizzes. Even the fancy ones, even the expensive ones, we're not quite there yet. And so that piece of it and the mental health piece of it goes unnoticed and it goes unchecked and it goes unquestioned and answered, if that makes sense. And so what we could do is more of like a supplemental, I don't know, I'm making this up on the fly, but something supplemental that we do. If we're married to that personality quiz that we've done for a long time, great, but let's do something in addition to, I feel a project coming on.
There you go.
Who in the comments wants to get with me on a project here, possibly for NAA next year? Who knows?
No, that could be good.
I think we can do better. And I think that we're doing the best that we can with the information that we have. And then we just continue to build on that. And I think that mental health is now, it's no longer a dirty word. It's used pretty much in the mainstream. So that's wonderful. So let's continue to expand on that.
Yeah. Well, and I want to just point out, like, a lot of times people that have autism, they're somewhere on the spectrum, they're usually like brilliant at something.
Absolutely. Yes.
And they go so far down that rabbit hole when it comes to a specific topic, usually.
Yes.
Is what I've come to kind of understand.
100%.
It's like usually there's something that catches their interest or they're naturally super gifted at. And that is the thing. But
that is the thing. Yes.
If you put them in the right spot with that thing, they are going to just deliver something amazing for you.
100%. And we could talk all day about how career pathing intersects with that. So finding out what your teammates not only are, like in the training space, there's things I'm really great at, and there's some things that I really hate that I'm not that great at. And so can you offload some of those pieces in your role? Let's say there's someone that's really great at spreadsheets and loves numbers. Great. Give them the spreadsheets over the whole team. Maybe they love that. It fuels them. For me, no, not at all. I do it. It's part of my job. But speaking to what people are really, really good at. For instance, Einstein, as you mentioned, was neurospicy for sure. Elon Musk might be digging up something here that I don't want to dig up. But anyhow.
No, he's autistic. He's on the spectrum for sure.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And notice when he interviews, he does not interview well. It's not his thing. It's not. He's not a people person, and that's fine. We need the Elon Musks of the world, and we need everybody. We all work well together. So
I think he has Asperger's.
it's Asperger's is an older term, if you will. I'm again
okay.
just learning all of this, but
All
now
right.
now it's just that you are autistic. So you don't say that
Gotcha.
someone has autism. You say that they are autistic and they're on the spectrum somewhere.
Got
See,
it.
stuff that I'm learning. Like I just learned
Yeah.
that last year.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Bobby says I feel attacked. No,
Yeah, we're speaking right to him. He's like, wait,
he's like,
are they
wait,
here?
what? Yeah. Yeah, you
No,
guys, thanks
he's
so much
awesome.
for the engagement too. This was super fun. I can't
Yeah,
wait to
absolutely.
see where it goes from here.
Yeah. And then there was one more thing, just real quick. It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
super long
take
discussion,
as long as you
but
want.
just about the topic about um, being in person versus education and training virtually and all that kind of stuff. We've kind of hit on it a little bit, but just what are you seeing and what are you seeing people wanting, I guess?
Yeah, it's been an interesting shift in those. I think I know Kara is in the training space and several others. So what I've seen in the training space is that we for years and years did this in-person training. Every new leasing consultant that came on board went to, and I used to even train these, like a one-day leasing 101, I think is what we used to call it, and it was 8 hours of all the things, right? Like, how do you answer the phone properly? How do you build a rapport with someone? How do you build the relationship? How do you tour safety issues? Literally 8 hours of all the things in that role, right? And
Yep.
so we covered that in 8 hours in person. And I would go and take people on a tour. I preferred to do this in person, and not only in person, but at an apartment community. So we could go on that physical tour because that sticks in people's minds, right? And so then COVID, right? The big C word. Well,
Mm,
that was 3 years, now 3.5 years ago almost. And so everyone we've hired on in the past that is a long time, my friend, 3.5
yeah.
years. So every person that we have hired on, I'm not saying they haven't done, but for the most part, have not had that sort of red carpet experience. So, what it looked like prior to COVID is at my old company, we did 8 hours of leasing 101 first day, second day, leasing 201, which was all the things TAA, we're Texas Apartment Association. So NAA and the lease contract and all the paperwork and all of that. So that by the time that person got to their community, they knew how to do their job, right? And
Mm,
so we have an entire sort of generation, if you will, in the past 3 years that has not had that. They have had, and I'm guilty of it too, because we were all trying to just basically live, right?
right.
And then do the best that we could with Zoom meetings and training, online, and we all did different things in terms of how we pivoted, and we did a fantastic job with what we could do, right?
Right.
But now what I'm seeing when I survey at least our folks just in my company is they're like, bring back the in-person training. There is this loss of not only knowledge, the transfer of knowledge that kind of went away when we went all online, but there is also just the mental health piece of it ties right
Mm,
into this. Everyone right now just wants to feel connected. We feel so disconnected for so many different reasons, social media, other reasons. We feel like we're isolated and that no one really cares how we're doing at our job, and we only get talked to when we're doing a bad job. The regional's coming, the manager's calling me into the office, but they're missing that piece of it. And this is not coming from me, it's coming from the employees. They're like, please, please, please bring back in-person training. And so if
right.
you're a huge company and you're on this call and you're like, great, Christy, but I'm nationwide, so how's that going to work? I'm not saying it's going to work for every company all the time. I'm saying, one of the companies that I worked for before, it was a larger company, bigger budget, but we did that in sections of the country. And so we gathered everyone together in this section. And then we can do that on a large scale. We can do it on a smaller scale. It's budget season. We can
Mm-hmm.
put this in the budget for 2024. We can we can get creative and have these in-person trainings again. I think not only is it important for the transfer of knowledge, it's important for people's mental health, for them to get out of the office for a day and for them to see me, or not just me, but anyone from the corporate office, that to be able to be around that person and build a relationship. And I think, gosh, I could talk on this all day.
Well, yeah, I think the big thing is if you're new to the industry, you're getting trained virtually, you don't get a connection to the greater community of multifamily, or let alone your company, then you don't realize how big it is. You don't start getting networked. You don't see the opportunities even. So like, I think there's even that part, because for a long time I was very local, and then I got exposure to the national stage of apartments when it comes to just learning. And I was like, my brain blew up. I was like, oh my gosh, this is, I knew it was bigger, but I didn't realize it was bigger. And, just until you get exposed to things, you don't really see that. And then when you're young in this industry, you might then not see the opportunity that there is.
No, you bring up such a great point, because if you're a new leasing consultant at one of my properties in Dallas, Texas, how are you going to know how big this industry is? How are you going to know your areas of promotion, career pathing, that there's more than just becoming an assistant manager or a manager? Great roles, but maybe that's not what you aspire to be.
Yeah. And then if you ever go to NAA, then your brain explodes, because you're like, or even TAA, your guys' show is big too. I went to that this year, and it's just like going to stuff like that. Companies allowing their people to go to that stuff helps them see, oh, I'm a part of something pretty big.
Right. 100%. Yeah.
Love
it.
There was one last comment. Just Kara, she was saying she just felt the enthusiasm of Apartmentalize, just people, being in person, all that stuff. So
she's trying to make me feel jealous again. I feel like that's what that is, Kara. No.
It was a big year. I think they had 13,000, which might have been one of the bigger or biggest attendance. So
oh wow.
It was a big one. It felt like a lot of people.
Yeah. I heard people saying things like, I have the NAA hangover. It is a real thing for sure. I mean, you need a day or two.
I was recovering for a few days.
Yes, for multiple reasons, my friend. Some for
multiple reasons. Being an introvert and then having that stimulus for that amount of time constantly every single day, from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. My body literally had to shut down. Like, I had to recover. It was crazy.
That could be right along the same topic we were talking about earlier, is the introverts, versus the extroverts in a training session or work environment.
Totally.
100%.
Well, Christi, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody that stayed with us. We went a little long, but I love that you guys hung out with us through the end, and even on a different day, on a Friday. Maybe I need to change it. This was a good group. Maybe Fridays are good. I don't know. We'll see. But no, I do appreciate you, Christi, for jumping on. We only connected last week, so this was very much a last minute addition to my schedule of guests. So thank you for doing that.
And thank you for this guy. I don't know. This is going to be a staple in my closet. I may wear it to work next week.
Don't let that get lost. Make sure you wear that loud and proud. And if you take a picture of yourself, take a selfie, I will post you. We have a page on our website called Manage Like a Boss. We host the week's episode, and then also our boss of the month that we identify of one of our customers. And then we have a wall of bosses all wearing their boss bling also.
Oh my gosh. It's so unlike my personality, because I'm a very, very much like a servant leader kind of person. So that's why I feel like if I wear it to work, people would be like, what is happening right now? Are you blink
Shocked?
twice if you need help in there? You all right? Like, what's happening?
No, that's great.
Uh,
Well,
thank
thanks
you
again.
guys.
And for anybody that wants to be on Boss Talks, just reach out to me. I'd love to have you. Just takes you messaging me saying, hey, I want to be on the show. I want to share what I'm passionate about and what makes me a boss, just like Christi. So
Absolutely.
till next week, Wednesday, which next week is episode 50,
What?
which is crazy. We have a great guest next week as well, Crystal Dukes. And so check that out. Join us then. And we will be on our normal time, Wednesday at noon Pacific time. See you then.
Bye, guys.